Hey guys, Micah from Black Bear Custom Kydex. I've got a couple of sheets to show you today. These are for a cold steel Trailmaster buoy, a Kabar Becker BK7, and piggybacking a Kabar Becker BK13. Um, these are some really nice knives. I'd love your opinions on them in the comments down below. Let me know if you own them, why you like them, or why you choose something else instead of these. You can probably see, I'm not 100% certain, but you can probably see some reviews on these particular knives for the customer in this instance. The customer is a gentleman named Michael, who has a Instagram and a YouTube channel. I will link those in the description box below. You can find him, Mr. Rexu, it's Rexu, or Have a Knife Day. I think those are his handles. So I'll link those in the description box down below, but you can see some great knife reviews and fun content on both of his channels there. All right, guys, these are some fun sheaths. I like both of these setups a lot. Let's start with we'll start with the cold steel because it's kind of a simple and clean setup, and we'll get to the more complicated one in just a second. This is a pancake style sheath, guys. That means there's a layer on each side of the knife. An independent layer, I should say. It's a separate piece of Kydex from both sides of the knife, sandwiched together, and you require eyelets on both sides to keep that all together. It sports a holder for this Exotac Nano Striker XL. This is bi-directional, so you can draw it, you can insert it, you can have it facing either direction. Doesn't matter, it's all the same. So whatever's most comfortable and convenient to the end user is what you should go with. But there you have it there. It also has a simple carry setup. This is what's called a leather drop loop. Now, there are a lot of misconceptions between the titles of all the things. The nomenclature gets a little confusing, partly because there are sort of standard nomenclatures in the industry in general, but then there are a bunch of us yahoos that just call things whatever we want to call them. And I try my best to kind of keep traditional names where they apply. And if I come up with a new type of setup, I might give it a name that's, hopefully self-explanatory, but sometimes I fail there too. So this, as far as I understand it, guys, this is a drop loop setup. What that means is you have a leather loop or nylon, but you have a loop, a belt loop that is fixed directly to the sheath rather than having some kind of intermediary mechanical connection like a D-ring. When you have a D-ring involved, it's called a dangler. And then if you add a leg strap to a dangler sheath, you've got a drop leg. So drop loop is what you're looking at here versus drop leg that sports the dangler or the leg strap as well as a D-ring. Now, what are the pros and cons of all of them? To give you a really quick rundown, basically drop loop gives you the ability to lower the handle on your body. Meaning, if you were to use like a rigid belt clip like a Tech Lock and mount that up here, that puts the handle substantially higher than it does when you've got your belt traveling through this loop. Having it lower, especially with a longer blade, makes it easier to draw out because you're pulling upward, which just requires some weird shoulder bending sideways, chicken wing kind of positions. And not saying it's necessarily a bad thing. If that's your thing, then great. For me personally, I don't like having a handle near my ribs. I also don't like having to do the weird chicken dance to get the knife fully clear of the sheath. So I personally really like a drop loop setup because it keeps the sheath from swinging. It's mostly stable on your belt. At the same time, it has enough flex so that if you do smack it on something, including a chair or the ground as you sit, it's going to flex and move a little bit to accommodate for that impact. But at the same time, it's not swinging around on you. It's not inconveniently high up. It's just a really nice kind of middle ground setup. And especially when you talk about, I'd call this a large knife for sure. But when you talk about a medium knife like an SE6, SE5, something like that, I really, really like a drop loop setup because of its stability, but its flexibility. Versus a dangler, which has that D-ring, allows that to articulate both inside the arc of the D-ring. The leather can move around there, as well as the crossbar of that D-ring having some pivot around that bar. So you get what's called a fully articulating dangler. And that, to me, I'm not a huge fan of danglers. I know they're very, very popular. It's the most common carry setup I do other than a Tech Lock. But I don't personally like danglers as much because I don't like the feeling of the sheath pivoting on me. That's just a personal preference. It doesn't have anything to do with whether or not it's actually a quality carry setup or practical, convenient, whatever you want to call that. It's just a personal preference. And then there's drop leg, where you add a leg strap, a thigh strap to that dangler setup. That is my favorite way to belt carry, I should say, a large, medium to large knife. The reason is because it gives you all the flexibility of that fully articulating dangler, but it also stabilizes the tip of that sheath so it moves with your body, with your leg, rather than being able to swing just based on inertia and momentum. So I really, really enjoy a drop leg setup the most, followed by a drop loop setup for pretty much mid to small knives. I don't really like it as much on a big knife like this, but it's a really good stable setup. And then a dangler, which is my least favorite of the three, but I still like it enough. So, okay, that's the sort of rundown there. Hope you guys understood my my mumbo jumbo, but comment down below questions if you have them. Happy to explain. All right, so that's pretty much that. Now, with this one, it was a really weird one to put into Kydex. I've done a lot of these lately, and I figured out the trick to it. I'm going to share that with you really quick. When you have a guard like this, I'm not sure if this is technically called a disc guard or what this would be considered, but you have the tang passing through the center point of a guard that travels upward beyond the handle as well as downward beyond the handle. So you wind up with a lot of geometry to contend with for the mouth of the sheath. If you want the draw to be smooth and clean, you have to come up with some kind of space filler to get in behind there so that you can see the sheath kind of flares open. So most of the retention is actually here and here, rather than toward the ends of the guard as they would traditionally be with something like a standard knife. Most of the retention is right here on this particular sheath. So with that, you've got a nice comfortable insert as well as a smooth and comfortable draw. There is, however, a slight trick to it, so I'm going to show you. When you go to put the knife into the sheath, the tendency is to try to go straight in, but you'll notice that that's not working so well. If you actually have this perfectly aligned, there's an issue with spacing, because you can see the Kydex is just, you're slamming into a sheer wall. But when I rotate the handle downward just a little bit, you can see that that's a lesser gap there, and you also have parts of that sheath which are sticking up above the guard. So, Michael, when you put this in, just drop the blade edge down a little bit, and just a little bit of pressure will overcome the handle at its widest point, which is this corner here. Now on the draw, you can grip it and rip it, but it's actually kind of difficult to do that. What I would recommend is that you just put your thumb on the inside of this and push toward the belt loop. So whether it's on a left-hand or right-handed setup, this is ambidextrous, by the way. Whether it's left or right-handed, you just push toward your body, toward that belt loop as you draw, and it pops free, nice and easy. Combine that with the force of your arm actually actively pulling on that knife. It is a super clean and smooth draw. Really, really enjoyable feel. If you try to do it all with just your hand like so, it's doable, but it's a little bit uncomfortable. But this is the best way, in my opinion, to set up the retention on this, because it doesn't compromise anything. It gives you good, secure retention as well as a smooth draw. You just have to learn the little trick there. So, Michael, I hope you enjoy this one. All right, moving over to the piggyback for the Kabar Beckers. This is a really nice setup. I'm really happy with this. It also features a drop loop for the carry setup. The only difference between the two carry setups is where this one is a pancake style sheath, I was able to use the four corners of that drop loop to mount everything. So it's a very, very stable plate. This plate is not going anywhere. It is rugged as heck. This one, however, is mounted just at the bottom through these 4 screws here. And, well, actually 6, because it goes, oh, never mind. No. So I mounted the flashlight holder to the plate, but I didn't pass through the hardware there. The reason I did that is because it allows you, the thickness of the edge of the plate is the same as the thickness of the edge of the sheath. So if you ever decide to try to reconfigure and move this flashlight elsewhere on the sheath, you do have the hardware pre-installed there as the option to do that, and can move it virtually anywhere. You'll find that almost all the spacings of the eyelets are universal. Same thing goes for this one. You can move that exotac to a different spot. You can see the hardware does not pass through the plate just through the sheath and the holder for that Exotac. I'm actually going to remove this and bring it over to this sheath because this has a holder for it as well. All right, so drop loop setup. The plate has just a little bit of flex, but it's pretty rugged. It's very resistant, and it feels totally stable. Your flashlight here, this flashlight is a Phoenix E12. Nice smooth draw on that. It's kind of a stubby pen light style flashlight that I'm breaking on camera for Michael. Jeez, gotta hold on to these things. So this one, you can remove the pocket clip, but what I would recommend doing is as you put it in, just pull the pocket clip up with your index finger, just enough so that it gets to the outside. When you put that in, it'll feel like it's a natural bottom out point, and it's nice because that pocket clip stays almost flush with the Kydex. If you push it in much farther, it's going to actually start to flare that pocket clip outward more and more, and I don't like that. It makes the draw a little bit clunkier, but more importantly, it opens you up for snagging your pocket clip. So another thing I recommend to do is to just tuck the pocket clip. You can rotate it in so that it's more or less hidden and just cannot be snagged on anything. It's also very easy to draw this. You can put it in from either side. It's a little bit harder to put in at the tip just because of the curve of the sheath, but nevertheless, you can definitely still do that. So there you go. All right, over here, the Exotac, self-explanatory, same as the other sheath. Now, actually, one thing I'll tell you about the Exotacs. So personally, I like to draw them out by the stubby end. I don't like grabbing the silver end. It's very, very smooth. It's narrow, so it's harder to grip. Whereas if you do it this way, you can kind of pull it up by the silver end, expose more of this textured aluminum casing, and just pull it out very easily like that. So I personally like to carry them like so. So I'll leave it in there just like that for your own experimentation, Michael. All right, and then over here, the BK13. Now, what is this funky looking setup here? This is what I call a breakaway piggyback. Breakaway piggyback is a concept I invented a few years ago, actually about 4 years ago now, and the purpose of it is to give you your smaller knife in a configuration attached to your larger knife whereby you can separate the two sheaths and carry the smaller one independently, immediately, and without having to use any tools to do that work. So in this case, we see the Ulti clip. This is the carry setup on the smaller sheath. It's a great small knife carry setup, guys. It works for inside the waistband, or my favorite, inside the pocket. It grips onto fabric rather than a belt, so don't click this onto your belt. Put it on, even if you do inside the waistband, put it behind your belt and just over your actual waistband. But it works on jogging shorts, sweatpants, jeans, dress pants, dockers, anything you want to use it on for pant fabric, it'll work. All right, so there we go. Now, watch as I separate this. I'm basically going to rotate it up this way as I pull it backward, and it comes out nice and clean. There's one very, very important thing, though. It's a safety risk, a safety thing, so please pay attention. Not only Michael, because he's getting this exact one, but anybody who is going to be thinking of ordering a Breakaway piggyback. When you separate your two sheaths, it is good practice, maybe for a while, to just remove your smaller knife from that sheath and then figure out what you need to grip onto to be able to remove that. I find this one to be very easy to remove if you focus on this little groove here on the plate, the Ulti-Clip plate. So I can just kind of use my thumb to push downward, and I'm just twisting this. That's all I'm doing, is just twisting this, and it comes out nice and clean. The important thing, though, is that you pay attention to the fact that you do not need to grip the handle of your knife, and doing so can result in accidentally removing the knife from the sheath or exposing part of your blade and your fingertips to that blade. So you do not want to do that. Be very, very mindful of that as you do this. I don't know if you can see where my fingers are, but I'm basically not even using these two fingers, just index, middle, and thumb, and it's plenty to break that sheath free. So watch your fingers. Please do not accidentally cut yourself operating one of my sheaths. It would make me feel terrible, and it would make you feel like an idiot because you have been warmed. So let's get the air clear on that. Putting it back in, you're going to do the exact opposite rotation. Bury the tip in there, pretty far. I like the plate to be overlapping about a 1/2 inch there. And then you're going to just rotate the bottom corner in between the 2 layers of the adapter. Once it's there, you can just push it forward and it clicks into place. So it's very easy to remove, very easy to put back, and it is very secure. It has no rattle, no play. I really like how this came out. All right, really quick. The Ulti-clip is mounted on this little plate here. This plate obviously does not interact with the adapter. The whole reasoning for it is to give you an option for this Ulti-clip carry without compromising having a really stable and secure breakaway adapter. Sometimes I'll do something on the back of the sheath instead. This one was kind of small, so I decided to go with actually using the sheath as the male piece of this puzzle. So it works out really nice. The plate has 7 mounting holes. You can see the 2 at the ends through there, through those little slots, and you can see the other 3 here. So 4 and 3 is 7. And of course you can mount directly to the edge of your sheath as well. However, I don't recommend it. I think it's best to go directly through any of these 7 holes, which give you a variety of ride height and angle options. You also can pare it down to just 1 single screw instead of having 2, and that'll allow a little bit of a pivot or rotation. Having the 2 1-inch slots on there gives you a massive ride height variation as well as those angles. However, I would caution you, when you carry with an Ulti-clip, it's always best to have it centered, because when you go to draw with a grip it, rip it draw especially, the weight is stabilized and the resistance comes in exactly a straight line to that balance point, so it's much easier to draw. If you were mounted over here, you would have this kind of pivot. When you go to pull up, it would want to rotate on you. You can use the thumb ramp to eject your sheath. It's not really quite ballistic, but where it's so small, you don't have to worry about the ballistic draw. So like I said, I really like in the pocket carry with Ulti-clips, so that's what I would personally do, but you do have the inside the waistband option as well. And you can also find some other creative ways, like hooking onto nylon webbing or something along those lines. But Ulti-clips are a great little product. The only thing you need to watch out for is using some kind of Rust-Oleum on them, or wiping them with oil every so often is a good idea, because they are prone to rust. All right, that is all I've got for you on that. And I think the final thing to show you would just be the retention on the BK7. If I'm not mistaken, that is the end of this discussion. So retention, very good. No rattle, no play. Knives aren't going to fall out on you. Ballistic one-handed draw. Nice click back in. This is just about perfect as far as the retention goes. So, all right, guys, that is all I've got for you. I'd love your opinions on the Trailmaster buoy, the Kabar BK7, and the BK13. I'm a big fan of these 2 knives. I don't really care for the super small one, but that's mostly because my hand is just too big and I can't seem to feel like I've got a secure grip on it. So I don't use knives that have a really short handle like that, but that's just me. I'd love your opinions down below. I'd also love to know what you think of the super clean setup versus having one that's a little bit more, I wouldn't say cluttered, but it's definitely more complicated, more complex, and with some moving parts involved. All right, guys. Whew, that's what I've got for you. So if you like this content, if you like this video, hit that like button. If you like my channel, please subscribe. Hit that bell to receive notifications, and you'll get something every time I upload a new video. You should get a notification to tell you that my knucklehead is rambling once again. And of course, if you want to, you can share this out to all your friends. Comment down below. Let me know what you think of all the gear. And of course, stick around for the next one. God bless, guys.